So I've been thinking about this gospel and thinking about the resurrection. And I kind of find it hard to think about the resurrection during this Holy Week, very clouded by the upcoming tragedy of the Passion. I know that for some, the joyous resurrection heals the pain of the Passion. But for me, the Passion is always painful. I can't find the reason and cause for an all-powerful divine to need a brutal, innocent death to bring about our salvation. Those things seem to be in contrast to each other of if this divine is all-powerful, why would our salvation be hinging on this brutal death? So instead, the crucifixion just takes the tragic consequence. Like to me, it feels just like the tragic consequence of a man's radical mission pushing against the systems of oppression and against the systems of the beliefs and systems of who is saved, who's not saved, and boils up into his brutal execution. And that's always going to be heartbreaking to me. And even with the resurrection, I don't see it as like a completion of the crucifixion because I think, I see the divine could have saved us without a glorifying these suffering, without causing all this suffering. So I think the crucifixion just serves to me as a reminder of what can be the outcome of a radical mission and a radical mission of inclusivity that Jesus was preaching. Um, so I kind of struggle with this a little bit. And then reading the gospel, I was seeing, they talk about at the very end about, you know, they believed without understanding. And so maybe that's where I am here. Um, Thinking about the crucifixion, I don't understand the crucifixion. I don't understand where it falls in. What is it meant to teach us always? Um, and the other thing I was thinking about was some of the part of the gospel is very human in that something as simple as this one disciple was faster at running than the other disciple and gets to the tomb first. And that seems like just a funny little detail to put in there. And that's something that's been popping up to me a little bit more recently of some of the humanity of these disciples. In the this past Sunday at Palm Sunday, we had the whole Passion reading, and I was thinking about the disciples and how they had the Last Supper, and their rabbi that they were following was complaining oh, you guys are going to turn on me and saying all these things, and they're like, no, we hang out with you all the time, we're not going to betray you and all of this stuff, what are you talking about? And Jesus must have felt really weird to them in that moment because they didn't understand what was about to unfold. And they go to the garden in Gethsemane, and it's late, so they fall asleep. That seems human. That seems normal. And then Jesus comes back and is like, "What are you guys doing? Why are you guys falling asleep? This doesn't make sense." And I think these past week has really made me think about some of the humanness of the disciples and how circumstances put them in these places, and they're still just human, and they're going to make mistakes because of that and not always see the bigger picture, which I think gives me a little bit of comfort in that these were the people chosen to continue this message. And even them were, in their own humanity, were doing human things and not always getting the bigger picture, which is giving me a little bit of comfort when I think about the fact that I can't fully grasp the crucifixion and where it all rests in this larger story of our mission of resurrection and how this terrible suffering can have meaning, and what meaning should that suffering have? Because I certainly try not to glorify my suffering, and I don't want to encourage suffering in others. And so I'm taking solace in the disciples and how some disciples are faster at running, and that might put them in different positions than other disciples. And other disciples might get sleepy and they might misunderstand what's happening at all different moments. Um, so I'm trying to stay in this space and see what are things that I can believe and not always understand, or what are things that I understand and don't yet believe. That's kind of where I've been thinking about with these readings in this Holy Week.